Included Slavic people, Russian PWs, communists and gypsies, homosexuals, the disabled, and various church leaders and clergy. The Nazis also targeted people who were regarded as dissidents or potential troublemakers, whether real or imagined.
Dr. Christine Thiesel will come and light the next candle.
We light the seventh candle to remember many courageous Gentiles who at great personal risk sought to hide or smuggle Jewish people to nations that were neutral. It was a crime to even show compassion to a Jewish person, and many devout Christians paid the ultimate price for their faith in God's promise to his chosen people. Many of them are honored today by the planting of trees in Israel, in the grove of the righteous Gentiles.
Jim Scarborough will come light the last candle, representing a very important group.
As the Allied forces thrust deeper into the heart of Nazi Germany, the full depravity of Hitler's vaunted thousand-year right became known. As the death and labor camps were liberated, battle-hardened veterans were appalled and horrified at what they saw. The dead were lying everywhere. The living were little more than skeletons stretched over bone. Some could not even comprehend that liberation had finally come. In time, horror returned to rage. It became U.S. Army policy to force the people in nearby towns to tour the camps and to see firsthand what the Nazis and Hitler had wrought. Although many denied knowing about the camps, that was hard to believe. The foul, nauseating stench filled the air for miles around. We light the eighth candle to remember the soldiers and sailors of the Allied forces whose blood, sweat, and sacrifice crushed Hitler's Third Reich and thus brought the Holocaust to an end.
Thank you, everyone. And what can you say? I mean, words don't capture it. It's our way of remembering today. Many of us from a Jewish background. How can we not remember? Many of you from other backgrounds. More and more people are beginning to realize that it's not just a Jewish tragedy, but this makes a statement on humanity. And as even several of the candles represented, groups of non-Jews that were directly affected and directly intervened. So today at Kehilat Ariel, we remember, and our heart is broken for that time of history not so long ago. Hannah, other survivors testify to that. But you have a mandate. Ana Adonai, and we continue with the prayer from the Hallel Psalms. Lord, it's so simple. Hoshiana, Christians say Hosanna. I've heard that Hoshiana, Hebrew, save us, please. Hatzlicha na, bring prosperity, bring success as we connect to you, Lord. So, beautiful prayer to sing to him. Ana Adonai. can jot that down if you want. Exodus 34, 6 and 7 lists 13 traits of God. And so they're called the 13 midot, measurements, qualifications of God. And we've been dealing with several of these. And as I was praying about our service, and I, thinking about the Yom HaShoah ceremony and all, it just occurred to me, wow, the next one fits pretty naturally and importantly. As you can see, the fifth midot, number 5, is God is compassionate. God is compassionate. And although it's based on Exodus 34, I did some word study on the word. You have it, of course, in the Hebrew, it's rachum. A lot of times it's in the plural, rachamim, because mercy, compassion. When it's talked of in God, there's many of them. So rachamim is a quite common word. And a beautiful passage, important one, is all the way in Lamentations. This book of Echa, Lamentations. You'll have to take some time to find that one, I guess. This little scroll of Lamentations is one of the 5 scrolls used for various Jewish holidays. And you may recall Echa, as it's called in Hebrew, the scroll of Echa, is chanted, read, reflected upon, usually at Tisha B'Av, destruction of the temple. Many Jewish tragedies taking place on the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av. And so it's interesting, this little scroll, Lamentations, is read consistently every year by Jews, traditional Jews. And so it's not Tisha B'Av, but it sure is parallel with Yom HaShoah. And there's a beautiful passage I wanted us to meditate on, especially in regard to God's mercies, his compassion. So Lamentations, you find it by now? Still looking in that index. Lamentations 3, verse 17. Put the next slide up, thank you. And it's one of those scrolls that are, well, as Echa is like the first word is an expression of, it's a cry. It's not even a word, it's just, Echa. It's such a sad scroll, most that's said there, because Jeremiah, who is the writer, is penning this just before the destruction of Jerusalem. And talk about a big tragedy in that day. It does relate to, I think, Yom HaShoah, and has some hope for us at Yom HaShoah. Lamentations 3, starting in verse 17. Jeremiah says, "My soul has been deprived of shalom. I have forgotten goodness. So I said, my endurance has perished, my hope from Adonai. Remember my affliction, my homelessness, bitterness, and gall. Whenever I remember, my soul is downcast within me." Not the most positive literature, but important for the neshama, important for the soul. Life does take those tragic turns. Jeremiah says, I don't have shalom. Hope is perished. Bitterness. I mean, you could easily carry that over from 586 BCE to 1945 and the Shoah. And how many people affected by such tragedies? I mean, well, the Holocaust is certainly the worst in our history, but it's not like the only tragedy. Jewish history is filled with suffering, sad times of history. And like Jeremiah, I'm sure a lot of people certainly could have said a few decades ago, some would still say today, I've lost hope. Yom HaShoah is just always going to be a sad day, a day of bitterness. It's interesting how you meet some survivors that are, yes, I mean, how